Hello, I'm James Rolfe, and this was my senior film for college. I produced, wrote, directed, edited, and did everything for this film pretty much. Yeah, New Jersey. Yeah, while my influences come from many places, the two biggest inspirations were the Twilight Zone and Weird New Jersey magazines. Anyway, right there is an abandoned ticket booth from a drive-in movie theater. Right there is Unexpected Road, and there's too much to talk about already. What am I gonna do? Hmm. Well, this is my first commentary that I've done all by myself. Usually I have the actors sit in so we can, joke and laugh, but this time I just want to try it out alone and just talk to you about what I was really thinking when I made this movie, and so I can listen to myself talk later and see if I sound like an idiot. Oh, anyway, that shot right there of that, the heavens ripping through the sky, that was totally natural, no after effects or anything. The clouds, however, are not really clouds. There's a bunch of smog from a billowing smokestack. And I'm doing this commentary pretty early. I'm fresh off of making this movie. I haven't really distanced myself from it yet, so right now I'm honestly kind of sick of looking at it because I just worked my brains out and I just graduated. Alright, so while episode 1 is based on the Blue Hole, touched upon UFOs and the Jersey Devil first. Since it's the pilot episode for a series I want to do all about real urban legends in Jersey, I wanted the main theme in this movie to be about opening your mind. I mean, to begin with, Jersey is just some state, but it's really the Devil's Garden, a place where the witches gather, where heaven and hell collide, you know. So I made up this character whose life mission is to reveal the unknown, or at least prove that there are things out there that we don't know about.
Well, that's all I have to show.
While I was editing, I fell short on time and I didn't get a chance to record some additional laugh tracks, so before it screened at the senior show, I felt that the classroom scene was too quiet and that it needed more noise coming from the classmates. But when I saw it at the screening, the audience filled it all in, like people were naturally laughing at all the right parts, and it made it feel as if the theater was the classroom, and it was perfect.
Yeah, I got abducted by aliens once. They
And
impregnated
this
me.
class presentation was actually based on a real incident. In my English class in high school, we had to do term papers and then discuss them in front of the class and do that whole visual presentation sort of thing. And everybody was doing, common debatable topics like abortion, gun control, child labor laws, which I thought was just boring to talk about. So I did UFOs instead, and everybody looked at me like I was crazy. And the dialogue in this film is pretty much based off of real life, from the teacher specifically,
Some relevant social issue, and nobody really cares about UFOs anymore.
especially the one line about the main concern is the credibility of the
To go
sources.
with the freedom of public information, I think that's acceptable, but really what you were doing was trying to prove that UFOs exist. And I think if you lived back then, maybe that would be, something that was more useful. But I think the thing that bothers me is the credibility of your sources. Can we talk after class?
Okay.
Next, we have Carrie discussing abortion.
This is the only moving shot in this scene, done on a homemade Steadicam, which did not work out well at all. I'm purposely cropping out Dana right there because she doesn't matter to the main character at this point. He's either totally oblivious to the fact that she's attracted to him or he's just intimidated. I mean, the audience can make up their mind, whichever it is. And about this book she's giving him right here. This book I made myself. All the graphics were done on Photoshop. The text is pretty much nonsense. I dipped the pages in tea to make them look old, and I painstakingly blow-dried each one of them, and I binded it with thread.
Coincidence because
I know. Rob
I thought this scene was really fun to, write and direct because it's full of so much awkward tension, which I wasn't sure at first if it was going to work, but when I saw it at the screening, everybody was laughing, and I was glad that,
okay.
subtle comedy like this can go a long way sometimes. So it was real rewarding.
Bye.
Oh, thank you.
I bought a new camera for this movie. The Panasonic DVX100 is the first affordable DV camera that can shoot 24 frames a second instead of 30 and looks more like film. And let me tell you, everybody in my school doubted this camera, but once I started showing footage in class, people were amazed at how good it looked, and now everybody's using it. But the only bad thing about this camera is that it needs more light than most ordinary DV cameras, so you pretty much have to treat it as if you're shooting film. So I found this out when we were doing this scene here, because the only light we had was the fire, and we couldn't use anything artificial because it didn't look right. So what we had to do was constantly throw kerosene on the fire when the actors were saying their lines, and Dan, was nearly getting his face burned off.
Some owls, maybe?
What about some footprints?
Just deer.
They were all good sports, though. I mean, for all the 20-year-old actors in this film, I just casted my classmates because I knew them well. I knew that they'd interact naturally on camera. I mean, we were making a movie, but we were just hanging out. I mean, we were drinking beer and roasting marshmallows. It was fun.
No, but it's not supernatural. I mean, forget that.
In this scene, the character is like trying to get his friends to tell scary stories around the fire, but they're not interested. Now, I associate a lot of my, childhood memories trying to get my friends interested in the same things that I'm interested in, but, it was all useless. I mean, I think a lot of times people just don't have enough fun. You ever go to a Halloween party and nobody's in costume? I mean, what's up with that? And parties in general usually are boring because everybody just talks about bullshit.
I don't really know anything.
Let's see, about the movie. Scene got a good response.
Okay. I mean, there's something in this book. I mean,
That book was at my fireplace in my living room. So we had to redo that. We couldn't get the lighting right to really see the pages. Couldn't zoom in very close either, so I had to make like a different book, just the pages, but I had to print them to like a full letter size, just so that I could zoom in enough to see those words. Still, that's a little digital zoom right there because I just couldn't get it. That Mystique Antique store right there, it's a real antique store, but the sign is fake. I painted that. I mean, it's real. I painted it, and then, which is like half scale, and then I masked it in there using After Effects. So the sign isn't the real sign. The inside of the store was just a corner in my garage. I collected a bunch of old props and stuff, and I just decorated the place to make it look like a strange curiosity shop. The lighting's kind of weird, but that's how I wanted it. Like it was all lit with fluorescent lights.
are those all the books right there?
Yeah, check it out. Psychic healing, witchcraft and the occult, angels and demons, life after death.
The motive of the old man here is very complex. I mean, the first time I wrote it, the plan was to have him warn Jason not to go to the blue hole, and Jason stole the map. But then I thought, why would he even tell Jason about it, since merely telling him is what made him curious enough to go? And also, since the same cycle of events must repeat, it made more sense for him to send them there on purpose, like tempting him by making it sound like a warning. Again, the map on Photoshop. It's actually pretty geographically accurate.
This blue hole. That's actually what I'm trying to find out about.
So he beats around the bush. He waits for his younger self to ask about the blue hole before he starts talking about it, because it's all a test. He wants to make sure he's really curious enough to go. And the way he talks with each line is like he's remembering what the older self said and is repeating, so somehow in the cosmos of time it becomes an exact repetition of the same event. I mean, it really got complicated, and I worked hard to keep it real simple, and make sure that there wasn't anything that seemed too far-fetched or that people would point out, that wouldn't work. But, during the shooting, I was under major time constraint. We only had 3 hours to shoot this scene, so I had to explain everything real quickly, and, we just let it go. And casting the old man was really complicated. I mean, originally I wanted an 80-year-old man, but, it wasn't easy to come by. And it would have been easier to cast the young Jason first. More people in the 20 age range are looking to act, but not so many, older people are easy to find. But I needed to find two people who somewhat resembled each other. And, the first instinct was to find somebody who also had the long wavy hair, but I figured clean shaven worked better probably, because people usually look different when they shave anyway. And that dissolve right there is one of my favorite dissolves I've ever done. I remember how intrigued I was when I first came up with the idea for this film. My friend Gina from Boston was visiting the South Jersey area near where I live, and she gave me a spontaneous call one day and she said she was looking for this place called the Blue Hole. I never heard of it, so she told me what it was. And I was at work at the time, so I couldn't join her, but I gave her a call that night, and she didn't answer her cell phone. In fact, I never heard from her again for another 2 weeks, and I was actually pretty scared for a moment that, she could have died back there. So I did a bunch of research on the place, and I went searching for it to see if it was real. And I actually had nightmares too, so of course there's a nightmare scene in the movie. A lot of my movies have nightmare scenes, so it sort of became a tradition. So my earliest memories were having nightmares when I was a little kid. Originally, the person operating this hand that comes out of the water was supposed to be swimming underwater with the hand, but this was in my swimming pool. It was freezing cold, so the hand was rigged at the end of an L-shaped pipe. So we really couldn't get wet because it was freezing. Those posters behind him I bought just for the movie. That is my room, and they're still up there. So you have 2 semesters to do your senior film. So the ideal situation is that, you should be doing all your pre-production work during the fall semester, shoot over winter break, and then edit during the spring semester. But when it's freezing cold out, it doesn't really work out that way. So my goal was to shoot all the exteriors during the fall. But, first I had to wait for my student loan to come in so I can buy the camera. I spent the whole thing on the camera. And by then it was October, and I started shooting immediately, but it was already freezing cold. And these college campus scenes were actually our last exterior, and we originally planned to shoot them in November, but it was canceled 6 weekends in a row due to snow, illness, Thanksgiving, and final exams. So it wasn't until the spring that we had a chance to shoot the scene again, and luckily the first warm day, I seized it and I conquered. Though it started snowing again the next week. And this scene here, I wanted to be filled with the same awkward tension as before. I wasn't as happy with this one because we were shooting real quick and I didn't think that everything I wrote made it to the screen the same way I imagined. But, that's just something that happens.
Check it out. I found these torn out pages. I'm actually going to go to this stupid place.
Really?
However, I have to say though, this part coming up where he walks off had the greatest audience reaction of the whole movie. Right when he walks off, people just started laughing and applauding. It was great. So yeah, he's without the map because it was useless, too small. So now he's looking on a real map to locate the area where the little map homed in on. I really like this montage. I just find it enjoyable to watch. Tripod on the back seat. He's going to his doom. I thought of putting some flashback images in here so you can see what he's thinking. Regretting walking away from the girl, wondering if this blue hole is just going to be a big disappointment like Santa Claus. But, there's a lot going on there, but spelling it all out just might be overkill. I figured just let the audience take it for what it is. He's feeling young, needs some adventure, but he's going to get more than he bargained for. And that car's been through a lot, by the way. It's been stuck in sugar sand, and it's my own car that I've used in my real-life adventures trying to find these spots and looking for locations for future Jersey Odysseys episodes. This place has such an eerie silence. Seriously, it seems that the closer you get to the blue hole, the more quiet everything becomes. You don't hear any birds, no leaves rustling in the wind, nothing. Except every now and then you'll hear a loud gunshot. Because of these gunshots, I had to redo a lot of my audio. So, especially the scene where he crosses a river, it's all Foley. Right now, it's mostly just music. The blue hole really isn't easy to find because it's hidden between 2 rivers in the middle of the woods. I remember when I first went to find it, there were so many paths I didn't know which way to go. All I knew was that there's supposed to be an old Indian trail that goes over a bridge that you cross that I read about in some old book by Charlton Beck called More Forgotten Towns in Southern New Jersey, where he writes about his trek to the Blue Hole. But when I found the bridge, I realized it was destroyed. So the only way to get to the Blue Hole is by, either crossing that river or by hiking about a half mile through a path that goes past a shooting range. That's what's left of the bridge right there, and there's the legendary path to the infamous Devil's Pool. This was so frustrating because, the blue hole's so close, but there's no way to cross without getting wet. And that water was freezing cold in November. You know what's really weird about that bridge? I think somebody tore it down for a good reason, to keep people away from the blue hole. Because there should be metal beams or something that support it, but there's nothing. And I don't think they could have been washed downstream because, the wood's still there. So I think somebody stole them. And we came out of that water, our legs were stinging. And after walking around for a bit, they just went numb. Alright, so anyway, you come up to the blue hole, and honestly, it's real disappointing to most people at first because, you know, it doesn't look bottomless like the legends say, and it's not really blue, it's sort of green. But, you know, if you think about it, that really is weird because all the water in the Pine Barrens is cedar water, you know, like rust colored, like the creek you just saw, but the blue hole's waters are mysteriously clear and freezing cold all year round. I mean, there's like little streams that come out of it, but no water seems to be going in, which may prove the theory that there's like underwater springs upwelling from within the earth. And yeah, some say it was created by an ancient meteor impact, which I might believe because it doesn't really look like a lake because the edges are so steep and the trees are like so close to it. Now the weirdest thing is that people really do drown in this thing. And people who are good swimmers. Like on the hot summer days, people jump in and then are never heard from again. It's been on the news. In fact, the actual day that this film screened, it was on the news that somebody drowned in it. And I heard, I don't know if this is true, but I heard that like skeletons were pulled out of it too. So the area may as well be haunted, and supposedly when you're surrounded by PKE, like paranormal kinetic energy, it will drain batteries. So my camera battery mysteriously died, no joke. It went from half full to empty in like a matter of seconds, and we had to go back to recharge it, which meant going back through the creek again. So what's the story? Is the blue hole really a passageway to hell? Does the devil come up and grab you? You know, is there like a funnel or something underneath that like sucks you down, like underwater currents, or is there quicksand at the bottom? Like, what is it? You know, but it's my movie, so I can make up whatever I want. So guess what? It's a time portal. And yeah, this is a lot like a Twilight Zone episode where like the ending takes a 90-degree turn. At one point, I actually decided to scrap the ending and let the movie end right after he dies in the blue hole, but everybody told me that they liked the twist ending and how it brings everything in full circle. So on account of that and all the encouragement I got, I decided to just go ahead with it. You know, but to actually establish that he's gone back in time and figure out, you know, how he finds the store, how he meets the girl again, and hitting to the audiences that, you know, he's the same character as the old man, you know, it all became like too much to get across quickly, so I found out a way to just do it like this in the most condensed manner possible. So I figured this guy, you know, in a cabin found him, and that, you know,
Did you see my car in the woods?
I mean, that was hard because I didn't even have a cabin, so I just decided, you know, light the background all dark so that you don't even really see what the place looks like.
94. Chevy Corsica.
We did this scene on St. Patty's Day. It was an easy shoot.
What's today?
Another ending I had in mind, you know, was that Jason would just go up to the blue hole, be disappointed, then walk away, and nothing would happen. So it would all be like anticlimactic, like in real life.
2000.
But someone else suggested to me that, you know, maybe that I could do that. Then after he walks away, like all of a sudden,
The girl we found down by
all of a sudden, the
blue
creature
hole
from the
St.
Black
Patty
Lagoon
found
would
you.
come out of the
She
blue
said
hole,
the same
along
thing.
with Dracula, the Mummy, the Wolfman, and Frankenstein's
Oh, she ran
monster,
away,
and
said
they'd all
she
be
had to
dancing
find
to the
someone
Monster
to
Mash.
you.
That'd be great.
Are you
Also, I
okay?
heard there's this abandoned building out there, like, or a cabin where there was like a
You know,
large
today-
cage that was all busted apart.
Today, yeah.
But,
today.
you know,
November 8th.
a large cage, what could they have been trapping in there? Jersey Devil?
It's 19.
I never found the place, but I found some crumbled ruin which might have been it, you know. Also, I keep hearing that there's another blue hole located across from the other one somewhere, but I haven't found it yet. Again, masking out the sign. And it's the same corner of my garage again. This was the last scene that we shot, and it was the hardest to schedule.
What are you drawing?
Like when we were all finally, you know, had time to shoot it, we only had like an hour. So yeah, we did this whole scene in an hour,
Black hole.
and we lit it in that same hour. We
Is it really
did
the
everything.
secret one?
It seems to be so.
So then what we went
So we
through
knocked
was
it out
some
pretty
kind of-
quick.
Time warp.
You know, this film's really different from most of the stuff I've done. Like there's not really much action, no head decapitations, and not even one drop of blood. Not a drop. But, you know, most of my films don't have much dialogue, but this one's full of it, so it made me kind of worried before shooting. But, you know,
It's not your
it came out well.
I gave you the book.
And it was nice to have something different from what I'm used to.
Did you really go in those woods?
I mean, it's more low-key, it's more like suspense, drama, you know, than the action. So anyway,
So
the
was
characters,
this
you know,
place?
they're stuck together now, so he won't be running from her anymore.
Bookstore. He's moving and
You know, I guess if there's anything I need to say about the space-time continuum, now would be the best time, but
I have an idea.
I can't really think of anything. You know, what intrigued me to make this film originally is, like, if you want to get deep into my mind, you know, there was this one time when I was a little kid, I tried to dig a hole to hell to see if it was a real place. Obviously, I didn't get very far, but I dug the hole so deep I could stand in it. But then some of the, like, the bigger kids in the neighborhood would come over and they'd make fun of me and tell me all about this awful stuff that the devil would do to me. So I got all scared and I covered it up. And since then, I don't know, maybe not because of that, but I've always been afraid of underwater or, like, underground. Like, some people have a fear of heights. I have a fear of depths. I don't like being underwater. I don't like being in claustrophobic places. So, you know, the blue hole, you know, hearing about it and learning of the legends, it sort of rejuvenated some of my childhood, like, horrors. So, you know, I make films about, you know, any minor phobia I have, you know, which is the same thing that Hitchcock did, which, you know, I think is pretty cool. But most important, I hope, you know, we found the film entertaining, and hopefully you'll see some more Jersey Odysseys episodes coming up. So, thank you for listening. This is James Rolfe, signing off. Goodbye.